You didn't talk. Your flashlight's on. Close.
Mute. Hello, Samuel. It's your mother.
Hi.
And I've already embarrassed you.
Yeah.
How do we know who's on here? Is it just you and me right now?
I mean, Brock Krasinski's here.
From Clearfield, that's nice.
Yeah. I don't know who this other person is. There's a black box here as well.
What's up, everybody?
Hello, Brock.
That's nice.
The progress is on.
No, Brock Karzinski, a friend of his from Clearfield.
Oh, I thought you said the progress.
Anyway, Brock, you got any questions?
I don't know what to ask about yet.
Yeah, I understand.
Hi, Sam. Can you see us?
No.
No. Well, hi.
Hi. There's like
Your mom got you on. Are you outside?
He's on the porch. Oh.
I'm trying to figure out, like, I mean, I don't know, has, like, if people got to see the web page, I guess I can share it and talk about it.
You're doing a presentation.
I mean, we were kind of briefed that this is just going to be like answer questions, and our web page is the presentation, but I'm flexible.
I have a camera. I don't know how I can make it happen.
I mean, we could all just get beers and have a happy hour.
Okay. Here we go. Anyway, so this is my project. So I decided to try and look into like the driving experience, but the driving experience for driving enthusiasts rather than like the mass consumer, the crossover like white Ford Escape people. So what I ended up doing was coming up with this theory about manually controlling torque vectoring, which is basically the whole basis of my project. But what it also involved was trying to test this theory. So I went with like a super small test bed for it, and went with go-kart scale. So kind of like 10-year-old dream, build a go-kart. So that was part of it too, as well as the actual application of it. So it was a lot of fun. Went with, let's see here, what do we have here? My buddy Christoph got lucky enough to actually test drive it. Well, maybe lucky. I don't know if you guys would call it lucky or not. It was kind of terrifying. So really the theory is that with manual transmissions, there's a learning curve to it. And then after you fight that learning curve, then you actually like get to try and become better at it. Where electric vehicles don't have that experience, but they have kind of like the technological like shock and awe kind of thing, where it's like super cool, and then after that it's just kind of the same thing every day. So with manually controlling the torque vectoring or left and right side separately, you kind of get the best of both. So that was kind of the thing. I actually, like, my co-op guy told me, like my supervisor told me to basically just whatever your thesis is, do something that you enjoy so that you don't get sick of it. So that kind of was the reason why I decided to look into driving. So I had a lot of fun doing the research. Dragged my wife to a go-kart track, hung out with some mechanical engineering kids, watched a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of people with opinions on YouTube, so that was perfect. As well as just like research in general. There's this book by this Swedish guy about flow, and like when you just get in like the rhythm of things and you kind of like look up and realize that hours have gone by and you didn't really notice because you were so involved with what you were doing. So that's kind of part of it. And then I got to try and play around with electricity, which is terrifying because you can't see electricity, so you don't really know why it's doing what it's doing until until you figure out more stuff. So that was a huge learning curve for me personally. As like a visual learner, electricity can be quite finicky at times. I got to build a lot of stuff, which was awesome. I think that's why I had as much fun with this project as I did. Also got to scare some people, so that was really cool. And got to sit in Teslas with random kids and try and figure out how to use the user interface of those things. Yeah, the build's still currently ongoing. Still have some stuff to do. The bent plywood turned out okay, especially for the first time. I'm gonna do some fiberglass stuff to make an enclosure, and then I plan on racing my mother-in-law on her scooter. So that should be for definitely interesting footage at least. Yeah.
You can't hear me go, ooh, those turned out nice. How did the body end up? Can you actually, does it work? Did it crack? Did it hold the weight?
Yeah, so it holds weight for
Yeah.
sure. It's kind of heavy, but I think it's because there were air pockets that happened during the glue up. So I like drilled little holes down into them and filled them with epoxy.
Yeah.
And epoxy is obviously like heavier than wood. So I think it's a little heavier than it needs to be. But and it's not perfect, but I think for the first time it's something I should be proud of. So I'm cool with it. And it'll serve its purpose. It's definitely better than the janky 3/4 inch plywood that I had that was all cut up and like weird kerf bends and whatnot. So
Do you have it around? Can we see it?
it's in my garage. Sorry, I have to like hotspot to do my garage, so I figured it was a bad idea.
Oh, okay.
Try and hotspot this whole thing.
So how rideable is it now? How have you tested it with different folks?
Yeah, so I haven't since the first test. That was kind of when COVID happened.
Yep.
So then I just kind of went to the garage and started to do everything I needed to do the build.
Yes.
Unfortunately, though, everything's been slow with hand tools versus CNCs and everything else. So
Yeah.
I'm still trying to finish it, but I'm fighting it whenever I can. So yeah, it definitely will be more rideable than the original one was. Definitely more durable. There was some weird stuff with the original prototype where it was starting to snap. So we kind of had to call the testing as far as we did. The chat. So I chose hub motors just because of the way it basically just limits all of the mechanical stuff that I have to deal with if the motors are just the wheels themselves. I knew that it needed to be all-wheel drive or at least dual motor. So, and then with electric motors too, basically the more that I have, the more torque that I can get. So I went with all-wheel drive versus dual motor for this.
So what new skills did you learn doing this?
Everything.
Everything?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things you don't know until you know that you don't know it. So it was all of that stuff. I ordered a battery and then realized that batteries are only suited to put out a certain amount of amps. So then I had to order another battery really before I even got the first one, because I was learning as I was buying stuff, which may or may not have been a dumb decision, but it happened. So actually, but luckily though, I got to turn those two batteries into one battery. So now the final one will have a higher amp output, which means I can turn the power on the motors up.
Oh,
So it should be even scarier than it was before. So it was kind of a win in the end.
I bet the body has to be a certain weight or it would be crazy to handle. I mean, maybe the maybe the plywood body being a little heavier is a better idea than having something lighter weight.
Well, I tried to, like, whenever I designed it, I tried to put the weight in the center of it in general. So I knew that if it got to the point where it was as crazy as I wanted it to be, that it would need the weight over all the wheels. So I tried to like have
Sort of like a
everything end up-
mid-engine Porsche.
Yeah, like a mid-person plywood skateboard hybrid go-kart.
How long will the batteries last once you get started on, say,
Yeah, so-
on a little go-kart track?
Yeah, there's a couple people that like measure range and stuff. It's supposed to be around like 15 miles, which is ridiculous. Like I would obviously never like just drive it around for 15 miles straight. But yeah, that's kind of what the calculations say that it's supposed to be. We've only ever drove it probably like 2 miles in testing. I now have like a digital screen on it that actually measures the wheel RPMs and calculates it into, so like basically it's got an odometer on it now. So whenever I like get it back together and get it testing again, I can actually measure the mileage on it, which will be pretty cool.
So did you get any feedback on your hypothesis of kind of the control in the thumbs and the wheel?
Yeah, so I got super lucky, and like my buddy Christoph, he's a car detailer, so he's driven like Porsches and Teslas, but he also was a tanker in the Army, so he's like driven weird things like tanks before. So it was kind of cool for him to say that it was really just like nothing he's ever driven before. Unfortunately, though, he was the only one who actually like tested it in its final form before everything happened and all the social distancing measures happened.
Gotcha.
So I personally have driven it, and it's kind of crazy because if you only throttle one side, it actually pulls like a car with like a flat tire or bad alignment or something. So there is actually importance with like manipulating both of them at the same time to go straight. So it's an interesting experience, but I definitely think that it's a step in the right direction as far as trying to possibly solve the problem I set out to.
Right.
So.
And what's up next for Sam?
No idea. I was originally going to try and go into the event space that I went to I co-op at. This go-kart thing might turn into some sort of patent that hasn't really so I've been like working with Raja about that. Jao kind of pushed me that direction, and I didn't really know if there was value in that, but as a man who gets plenty of patents, I feel like I should respect that. Also, he like has worked in the automobile space.
Fantastic.
So that was kind of awesome to hear that from him. And I later talked to him, and I'm now working with Raja to push some paperwork through Drexel.
So looking back at the project, what parts of it do you think that you could have been more successful in like a design process with? Like, do you think like the materials are appropriate for your project now that you've gone through it? Would you go back and look at different materials? Do you think that there's any components that you might want to thinking about?
I think I underestimated the bendability of the wood. Like it was 1/16 plies, and I actually like worked with Tim helped me out to bend it, and we were fighting it for like hours to try and get it to bend. And like that's part of the issue is that it didn't come out quite as well because I had different expectations for it than realities. But I think I don't know, maybe it's just like a power thing, but I think it'd be kind of fun to make it a slightly bigger scale. But at the same time, like there's a certain toy aspect to it that kind of is a positive for a test where you want to actually push stuff. I always I set on the go-kart scale of it because if it was a full vehicle, like you couldn't push it to its limits without being completely terrified. Also super dangerous. And whenever you're on something so small, 30 miles an hour feels a lot faster than it obviously would in a vehicle. So I think that if it was bigger, it'd have to go faster. So for liability reasons, that'd be awful. But for like funability reasons, it'd probably definitely be. We got a
Speaking
full
of,
house in here.
Sam, speaking of safety, if you go around a turn maybe a little faster than you planned, how do you stay in your seat? Is there a seat belt, or would you consider
No,
putting a
so
seat belt
there's
in it?
like bolstering into the actual like plywood frame part of it. I called them wings. There's not really any like other name for it. Originally though, it was just nothing, and through some testing, it may or may not have threw some people off onto the road. So that was kind of always in the works, but the prototype didn't have those, and through not having them, it kind of validated that they needed to happen. So originally after that, I used some like stick-on neoprene foam. I think it's like 4 mil foam, and that helped. It at least gave like traction to your butt to stay in the actual like seat or on it. But the later models will definitely have like the second revision is definitely going to have more what the renders look like, where it's like a 3-dimensional seat that kind of hugs you.
I'm looking at your theory
Yeah.
process here, Sam. Curious if there were any moments where, there's a moment you say, if I do it like this, I can get the vehicle to do this. Were there any of these discovery moments where you were like, whoa, this is incredible. Like I could see this scaling up into like a full scale vehicle and applying it in different ways, or have you not tested it enough just yet?
I mean, I think like it was kind of like the first aha moment whenever like one night I had it like at my house and I just kind of said screw it and like took it out and drove it down the road, and that was whenever I finally actually like put full power only on one side and it pulled. But I was like, okay, this might actually do what I was hoping it would do, which I think was like the first big thing. Also the fact that they're just little skateboard wheels, I think that like scaled up, it could be very interesting.
Is there a front and rear wheel bias, or is it just straight up, right side,
Yeah,
left?
so I can like program that in. So each motor's on an individual speed controller. So I can basically change what the max amp is on those. And so the battery alone, I think it outputs like 125 max continuous amps, which is crazy. But then I can like distribute those amps however I want to the motors. So if I want to, like, if I test it more and I'm like, okay, the front wheels are spinning whenever I accelerate because there's more weight on the back, I can actually just take some of the amps that were supposed to go to the front and program those into the back motors. So if you look at the little, like the render of just the overview, there's like 4 micro USB ports, and those are directly wired to individual speed controllers for the wheels. So like the order of them, there's 4 of them. So it's left front and left rear, and then on the other side, right front and right rear.
Do you think you could ever automate that? So that, like, say you're turning left, it's going to change the amps going to the front left wheel to make it more to turn the vehicle into the, like, I know that takes the control out of the driver's hands, which is the opposite of what you want to do, but you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I do. And like, I think kind of what you're talking about is have some sort of like G meter in there to be able to regulate and like equate what your thumb inputs actually turn into front and rear. Is that what you mean? Like if you're like pulling really hard into a corner, that it would distribute the left or the front and rear differently.
Yeah, kind of like the limited slip on modern vehicles, that if you start losing traction in one wheel, it slows that wheel down.
Yeah, and like those speed controllers too can be tied together, either left and right or front to rear. Like you can put 2 speed controllers together so that if the speed on one gets sensed that it's a lot higher than the other, it'll actually like it has the traction control feature. So it'll kind of like limit power. So it's not even like, it wouldn't even be as hard as a complete fabrication of something as much as just like software manipulation.
Sam, how much would it cost to build one now? If you were to build a second one, what do you think the cost would be?
Yeah, a heck of a lot cheaper than the first one. I've had someone like reach out to me actually, and I think with like obviously I had to buy some things in bulk that I don't need for just one. So I think another one would probably be like $2,000, about $2,000. So about half price.
Hi, Sam. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry, I have not been paying attention much the last few weeks, but and I missed the beginning of your presentation, so I apologize. I am very happy to hear that you're thinking about patenting some of the things. Do you know what your claims are going to be? Like,
Yeah, so it's basically just the left and right control on a steering wheel.
Yeah.
I like threw some just like research to make sure I wasn't chasing anything not worth chasing. All the torque vectoring systems that I could find or like powertrain bias systems were all computer based.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically just like the IP of manually controlling it, like driver controlled torque vectoring.
Because I was thinking, building off what Brock was asking about, had you talked about how now that you have this system and through software be able to program different feels for the vehicle? I mean, like, could you program it to act like it was on dirt? Could you could you program it, and then through software, change how the motors are reacting, for
Yeah.
more slip or less slip? Like, I wonder if there's anything there too for, if you were going to move forward with this thing.
Yeah, like the speed controller software also has where I can program the throttle curve on it.
Yeah.
So like on some, yeah, they're basically like it'd be interesting to have like an aggressive setting or like the race mode that some cars have, where the throttle even just seems twitchier.
Yeah. Yeah. Like more slip or less slip, of the
Yeah,
wheel.
yeah, and like that's the thing too, where you could simulate things like a turbo on a like internal combustion engine car by having the throttle curve kind of come on differently.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it would also be kind of interesting to like look at it from a simulation standpoint of other like situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Because after my experiences long ago of Magic Mountain, I think I would rather have your card.
Yeah,
Anyhow.
I think it was Gemma who was telling me about this, like from Jersey. There's like an amusement park that it was like all about if you didn't die, like it wasn't awesome.
Action World.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Gemma.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, because I like.
Sam, I'm gonna bounce to another room, but I just wanted to tell you that I'm really happy that you made the go-kart in the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job. It's awesome.
Thank you.
You should charge us for rides now.
That was supposed to be a fundraiser for the senior show initially. It was $5 go-kart rides.
Yeah. Anyhow, Sam, I'm going to miss you a lot. Congratulations. Please stay in touch with us and me. Hopefully you won't block me from your Instagram so I can at least see what you're doing.
I don't think I will. Thank you, Mike.
It's been a real pleasure to have you in the program, and I know I've been hard on you at times, but you bested me, which is good. I really appreciate that.
It's all right. I appreciate the tough love.
All right.
Bye, Mike. Oh, I guess I'm over my time, so I don't know if I'm supposed to like kick you guys out to go to other rooms or what the situation is here. But anyway, Kenji, you got any questions, dude?
Dude, I haven't seen you in a while, but that thing looks dope, not gonna lie. The
Thanks,
only
man.
thing I see it, and the only thing I've asked is the board made out of what is the material for the board currently?
Yes, so it's like maple. So it's basically just a big skateboard.
But I'm guessing maple is maple your current, just a current test bed?
So the image, like the images of the person on it, like there, is it's just like some crappy plywood that we had in the shop.
Yeah.
But the like the actual one, if you watch the build video towards the end of it, that one's actually bent maple.
Because if I want to see you using the whole thing, like this is gonna sound ridiculous, but if you build that out of carbon fiber, how cool would that look? Because that would be also lighter and also would be cooler for your experience for your torque vectoring.
It'd be lighter, but at the same time, carbon fiber is weird. Like I am biased on carbon fiber just because of the fact that it's like a conductive material. So there's like, yeah. So that, I mean, it's not that big of a deal if treated properly, but for me personally, I just think like carbon fibers, I don't know. It's almost like it's overhyped for what it is, really.
It is overhyped, but I guess it's light. It makes it also look cool. So
yeah, and like, well, I mean, yeah, it would offer me the ability to like make things thinner and reinforce things. Basically, if there was a better way to like simulate this and engineer it, like if I was an engineer, I could run the simulations and actually put the reinforcement where I needed it. But because of that, I just kind of had to over-engineer it and hope that it worked out.
Yeah, because so far looking at all the work series is the one that interests me the most because it's like a full scale too, and you can play with it. Like that's very interesting. Very fun.
That was kind of that was my big thing going into this was I kind of, and like I've been on this like go-kart kick since like early last year. So
yeah, I have something similar in my head. I like giant RC, so I was interested, but it looks very dope. Congratulations, Sam. I really like it.
Thanks, man.
I hope I get to ride that someday. That's awesome.
I mean, I know you've been trying to get me out to California, so
yeah. If you have to check a bag to fly that thing out here,
yeah, I don't even know what TSA like. At least in the current state of things, it kind of looks like a bomb. So I don't know how TSA would feel about it.
That might go a little awry, but yeah, great work, man. Super cool.
Thanks, Brock.
Yeah.
Yeah, good work, Sam. It's been cool seeing you in the whole process since quarantine, especially before. So
yeah, it's been interesting to like try and like the push to just make things happen at home. I guess for that I'm kind of grateful of the situation, right? Like try and find the silver lining and things.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting that it like pushed me a little bit to figure out that whatever I do, I could probably do it at home if I just wanted to. And was okay with, buying the tools that I didn't have. But yeah, so it's been interesting.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Thanks, man.
Oh, I got another question. By any chance, have you thought about using a different tire?
Yeah, there's been like, so I haven't like actually explored this, but I think if I just like wrap them in if I find a PVC pipe that's big enough, I think I might just be able to make sleeves. Like if I wanted to make it like more of like a drift cart situation where it was slidey. I could also just like cast the polyurethane in a like higher durometer if I wanted to. The wheels and motors are like the outer wheels is what they're called, are just Alibaba, like stuff off Alibaba.
China.
So yeah, your people. So like there hasn't been. I mean, there's been thought into it, and I even went to like Eric about it the one day and was like, dude, I think these wheels, like, it'll never work unless I make the wheels harder. And he's like, you're kind of just worried about the details when you should be worried about actually just making the thing happen first. So I needed that little bit of wisdom to get where I was going. There were a couple of moments where I just really needed someone to basically be like, what are you waiting for? Like, go do it, for me to get where I was at, like where I'm at now, which I'm thankful for. There were times whenever it was really easy to lollygag around and like try and question decisions instead of just make them.
Now the next thing is make your golf running.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing too. My brother-in-law keeps telling me about, dude, just put this in the Jetta. I know, can't do that, but yeah. I mean, it's definitely ran more than the Jetta has. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna get off of here for.
I just want to say I'm proud of you, and don't doubt yourself. You know you shouldn't doubt yourself in life. Take some risks and you'll be just fine, honey. I love you.
All right, thanks, Mom.
You're welcome.
Well, anyway, I'm gonna get off here and drink a beer, and before I'm back here talking again at 8.
All right, congratulations, Sam. That looks pretty dope, dude.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
congratulations, Sam. Nice job.
Thanks, Mel.
All right, peace.
Bye.
I don't know how to get us off, but
I don't usually get to hear him speak, like that.
right.
I don't know how much you want, sweetie. Is that too much?
No, that's okay. We're still on, and I don't know.
I don't know if I want to watch any of the other kids or not.
Mel, just exit out of it.
Okay, we're trying.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Mute myself.
recording.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Sam.
This is fun. Hi, Gabby.
How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good.
All right. So I guess, so I was looking at kind of confused about last time, but I'm going to try and do this again, and we'll see what happens. Let me share my screen, and we'll just go over my web page real quick. So my thesis is based around the idea that like manual transmissions hold a certain place in motorsport and driving in general. So basically with the inclusion of electric vehicles and just new technology with efficiency, there's no need for those manual transmissions. So then you have to, there's like a loss of an experience. So what I wanted to do was look at electric vehicles and where you could reintroduce the experience, basically based around mastery and control into that experience. So what I came up with was Torque Steer, which in its current state is this little go-kart that has 4 hub motors, a screen, and then it's also got digital input or digital, like it's got lights so that you can see the actual inputs of your thumbs. It's like the throttles are on your thumbs here, and you actually control the left power and the right power separately. If you look at it, you may question why there's no brakes on it, and there actually are, just in the motors. So that actually puts power back into the batteries. So with this project, it needed to be electric, obviously, and introduce a new element of control. But I wanted the element of control to be easier to use than like a manual transmission car when you get in it and you see 3 pedals and like think I have 2 feet. Why are there 3 pedals? So I wanted it to be intuitive, and then it also obviously had to fit an adult because this whole experiment was based around the driving experience, and like obviously the drivers of vehicles are usually adults. Oh gosh. And then safe. I know like there was a certain point in it where I didn't think safety actually mattered that much. And there was another point in it when I realized just how much electricity I was dealing with, and that I needed to make it at least a little bit safe in one regard, if not all the regards. So let's play this video. Oh. So that was basically the idea of the final prototype. This is obviously a picture of it in its, well, not recent state, but more recent state of the actual build of it. This was just to try and get it to a working fidelity. And the theory, like I said, is about trying to dissolve a learning curve of a manual transmission, but then also give the driver the ability to like continue to try and better themselves while driving. So there's like certain things that you can do with the vehicle that aren't actually that impressive because it's just like a one setting and then you set it and you kind of just don't touch it again. So with this project, it needed to be similar to a manual transmission where like it always needed adjustments to actually give you what you wanted. And I got the opportunity to research. There was a time where I was speaking to my co-op, my supervisor, and they basically said that during thesis, do something that you love so that you don't actually ever get sick of it. And that's kind of what led me to look at the driving experience. So I got to go to car meets and read a lot of magazines. I actually had a driving experience survey. They got quite a few responses. So this kind of helped me figure out what it was about manual transmissions that people thought were so special. There's like movements currently with like save the manuals, and there's all these people that refuse to buy buy new cars unless they have a manual transmission. So there's like a real I guess fetish, for lack of a better word, around the manual transmission and the experience that it involves. So I knew whenever I went into this project that I wanted to have a tangible thing that I got to build, because building's such a big part of why I love product design. So I started with an electric skateboard that I built and learned a million things. And then I continued to learn a million things with all this electricity and stuff. I also learned how to ask for help a lot as far as, electronics. I'm not obviously an engineer or an electrical engineer. So there was a lot of questions with those. And then also, I because of this like form factor of it, there was a lot of unknowns that a lot of people didn't have the answers to either. So I kind of like leaned on the electric skateboard community to get my answers for a lot of that stuff, and then also to the DIY skateboard people who actually like bend their own decks and whatnot. So that's the project. The coolest thing about it was that I got to build a thing and watch a grown man go 30 miles an hour on this like crazy little thing that I built. So it currently doesn't look like the renders yet, but my intention with it before COVID was to actually have that done this quarter, and it got delayed because I lost the facilities to have CNCs and welders and laser cutters. So in the end of the build video is basically where the project's at. So so basically right now it's a bent piece of wood, basically with the same engineering as a skateboard, and then all the electronics involved with it are ready to go. I really just need like another month to work on it. Like I said, everything's slowed down so much because I lost the facilities at school, but I didn't want that to stop me, so I didn't let it. It just kind of won a little bit. Anyway, you guys got any questions?
No, I was gonna say, like, if you hadn't, mentioned the fact, because like I know that you lost time, but your model still looks as good as, I mean, it looks really, really close to your renders. So, and I saw that what you did to outsource stuff as much as you could. So, good job. Very
Thanks,
good
man.
job.
Appreciate it.
I have to say, when I looked at it, I initially, because I've seen now the video twice, I thought of somebody with a disability using it.
Yeah, so I actually I got a couple of shares through social media of a metal laser cut company, because I actually used them for some of the metal pieces. And I actually got a message from someone who's a paraplegic who owns a hot rod shop in Seattle, I think. And it was basically like, hey, this would be awesome for when like my wife and my daughter are on their bike rides. So that might actually be the final place for this. I actually have enough materials to make a better plywood deck, so I might go back and do that depending on how the job search works out. But that, like, I obviously don't have any real use for this other than documentation of it, so that I can have that for the rest of forever. So yeah, that might actually be where this ends up, is in someone's home to actually use. So that would be really cool.
Yeah, because it's cool. I mean, it makes it a little bit more liberating,
Mm-hmm.
And I also
Yeah.
can think of somebody who, temporarily having to use something like that.
Yeah.
Like somebody had a hip operation, or it's just very well done. And your video is great.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of, when I was a little kid, I always kind of wanted to make an electric go-kart, and that was really around the fact that my father was in a wheelchair, so I like had a lot of electric wheelchairs around from his like previous ones. Yeah, so like I always wanted to like rip those apart and make a go-kart for my own. So I kind of like, I look back, and I have experiences in life where I look back and I'm like, all right, 12-year-old me would think that was pretty awesome or whatever. So like this one's kind of like a shout out to like 10-year-old me to build this like electric go-kart. So that's kind of been like a little bit of the reason why there's been such like passion with me doing this. So
well, meant to be. Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
So I guess the experience of the manual transmission, I don't know if this is what you were going for, but like since you're doing right hand torque steer and left hand torque steer, it's sort of like paddle shifters with where typically right paddle is shift up, left paddle is shift down. Is that what you were trying to replicate?
No, so really, this was basically like, look at the experience of the manual transmission, complete the slate, like clear the slate completely, because to try and replicate something and just replicate it it's not going to get anybody on board because it just looks like a knockoff. So this was basically go back to the drawing board on the experience of a manual transmission, and then build it back up from something that is now available through electric vehicle technology. So like that's why there's hub motors involved and speed controllers that you can program and whatnot. So I mean, like in an intuitive sense, like forward is go and back is brake, and then also there's LEDs, or there's LEDs that go green whenever you throttle, so you can actually physically see the inputs on a screen of what you're doing, just in case you're unsure of what this means. And that's another thing to do with trying to eliminate the learning curve, is by like visually showing people what they're doing.
Yeah.
Instead of just feeling it.
Yeah, because I remember on at least on race cars there's that set of lights that tell you when to shift.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the blue that tells you when to shift. So I see. So I can see a little bit of that. It's
there's like some styling aspects. Volkswagen in the 80s had this like really interesting and now like highly sought after instrument cluster where it had like the LEDs, but it was like super late 80s like tech that looked kind of crazy. So that was kind of where the idea for the styling of the red and green lights came from. And then also, that wasn't in the test, but what I integrated later was actually a speedometer and an odometer, so I could like clock how many miles it's gone since battery charge and like see the battery output and stuff. And that was, luckily that was just like open source code, but I made it work for my situation.
Gotcha. Do you also have like a route to empty meter? Do you also have like a route to empty meter? Meaning like route to how many more miles until 0%?
Oh yeah. So it's got like it also reads information from the battery, like voltage, and I think it calculates watt hours used as well. So
I see.
It can like, if you look, there's on the actual like speedometer, there's a red green bar there, and that's battery.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, no, it's kind of fun, and like the fact that it's so small means that like 30 miles an hour feels like 80.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, congrats.
Thanks, man.
This is like one of my favorite projects over here. Now that you've been through all that, and congrats, and good luck with you.
Awesome, thank you, man.
Yep. Good luck with everything.
Sam, do you see this being scalable to electric or EVs in general, like a more mainstream Tesla, or perhaps a more bespoke, like a Rimac or something like that? And if so, how does, two-part question, I guess.
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, how do you plan to kind of overcome the heavily ingrained, for let's say after like the Model T, really, the whole like brake pedal, gas pedal, clutch pedal has been kind of a standard. In what ways are you addressing kind of breaking that norm, and how are you addressing that as you're putting throttles on the steering wheel, I guess is my question.
Yeah. So I think that if it is integrated into an electric vehicle, I had a buddy of mine send me a post from a company called Draco that has an electric vehicle. There's like a million electric vehicle startups now, but this one was Draco, and 90% down the page, I was terrified because what I thought he did was just send me a post that said that they had already done my thesis. And then at the end, it said that this computer made, 1 million calculations a minute or whatever. So I was immediately relieved by that. But then also, after like watching some of their videos and whatnot, I saw that they didn't really address the same problem as me. They just made very impressive technology. And like, the thing that I was trying to do is basically make the electric vehicle involve the driver. Like technology is constantly trying to push the driver out of this. And it's, I mean, technology is to make things easier. So I understand why for the mass market, that makes sense, but not quite for like, it's the same reason as why there's still sailboats, even though we've came up with a million different better technologies. It's because people love the idea of sailing versus, you know, speedboats or whatever else. Like one's easier, but one's actually about the process of it. So I think it would be integrated in an electric vehicle that had like a driver focused mindset. Like I know for a fact that like Ford has released things like the Focus RS where they have manual transmissions and they only come in manual transmissions because they know their market is who they are. And like Porsche has released special ones that just have manual transmissions. So I think that there's definitely manufacturers who understand what some of their audience is, which is good. And then to answer the second part of the question, I think that to overcome this, I mean, I feel like it's shown every year whenever there's shows like SEMA and other auto shows where they just show this like, all these extravagant concept cars that seem like they're crazy, and then 20 years later you actually see that come to fruition in vehicles. So I think it definitely, like my whole point with this project was really to kind of start a conversation on what can be introduced into an electric vehicle. So I guess my answer to that question is that, like, I don't know if this exactly will end up in there. I've seen concepts for, I think, Hyundai, where they had like a seat set up and just two handles on the edge of the seat. So there's definitely interest from people, at least shock factor interest in trying to introduce a different kind of way to control a vehicle.
It's important to think about these things, especially as we see cars that are now like piping engine noise in or completely sound canceling, and like people have no concept anymore of like I'm driving 80 miles an hour down the highway, whereas I'm in my like 78 Camaro without airbags and people are like past me, and it's like, okay, you know, that raw driving experience, especially from a safety aspect, is pretty important in grounding you in what you're doing. For new drivers nowadays that are in these new cars with auto transmissions and paddle shifters and all that other stuff, are kind of numb to all this stuff. So it's not even just like a, you know, an enthusiast, you know, I love my manual transmissions to death. But at the same time, it's also kind of a safety aspect, and I think it's important and noteworthy that you brought that in as one of your contingencies in design. You know.
Yeah, there's a really good movie on that called Autonomous or Autonomy. I think it's on Amazon Prime to rent, but it basically says that like there's a touch of nostalgia involved with that, and it almost like says the exact what you did. So there's always going to be the dude that like wants to do a burnout in a 78 Camaro, like no matter what the situation or like what is available. And so when you said that, that's what I thought of. But yeah, it's kind of weird that like there's an ideal experience, at least for some people, and it's like the most known thing ever, where it's just, I don't know, like the vehicle is an appliance.
Yeah. Nice work, Sam. I'm going to head off to another presentation, but appreciate seeing the kind of the development from the IDSA awards all the way through here. I think it ended up coming out well. And if it's ever on campus, I want to take it for a spin.
Definitely. Thanks, man.
Do you feel like, I have a question. Do you feel like this has changed your relationship with driving at all?
Yeah, I think it has. I don't know. Like at the beginning of the research for it, I didn't really understand. I think it's made me more of, I think at the beginning of this, you actually caught me, dude. At the beginning of this, I think that I was like, who are these people? Like, why are they so obsessed with these manual transmissions? I'm like, I personally have a car that's slower in the manual, like fitted with a manual, and I have it as a manual. And I bought it on purpose like that. But at the same time, I kind of started to question myself on like why I was doing that. And I think like through the research of this, I answered that question that like it's a part of the control. And like Jared said too, like it's like the noise and like there's something about like a raw driving experience that's much more appealing to me than like you get in and like you kind of treat your car like a microwave and you hit a couple buttons and then it's over, like you're wherever you need to be. So I think in that like fact, it's made me more understanding of my own feelings, I guess. I don't know, like it's not like whatever, like a manual transmission is not a therapist or anything, but like for a lot of people and me included, like sometimes when you have a crappy day, like the best thing to do is just get in your car and just drive around and like find a windy road and feel good about it. And that's kind of where like the whole like idea of like this flow mentality comes with, is you're so focused on one thing that like you kind of forget about everything else that's around you. So that's kind of like the cool part of driving, I think, for me at least. I think currently I'm supposed to kick you guys out now and tell you guys to go see my friend's stuff. But I appreciate all you guys coming by.
Thanks a lot. This is great.
Thanks, man. Hello. Hello, Corinne. How are you? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear your beautiful voice.
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's all good.
How's the show been so far?
Honestly, smoother than expected by a lot.
Nice.
Obviously, this is the first time any of us have done any of this. So,
Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
much smoother.
I'm
And
very.
the
Go
fact
on.
that the final form, like the form was finalized an hour ago as far as like what it is. So, yes, it's been much smoother than expected. So that was good.
Nice. I am very impressed at how quickly and well you guys have integrated this setup.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, it's one thing to like look at it with like a fine tooth comb, but it's another to actually step back and look at it and realize that somehow we're not web developers and put something together. So
Yeah,
I think like long term, I'm proud of it. Like obviously, like anything with any project, you like look at it and all you see is like the little stuff that you can get right. But I think from the other end of it, I think it's good. So I'm happy with it. I'm excited with it.
Nice. So what's the format of these Zoom presentations? Are you gonna like present and go through?
So yeah, I've kind of been like just going through my webpage and then opening it up to questions. Like there wasn't really any set thing for us to go through or go over. So like everyone's kind of been up to doing their own thing. Is this your first one?
Yeah, I just got on.
Got it. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I guess I'll just start up. But my project was basically to try and figure out how to replicate the experience of a manual transmission in an electric vehicle. There's obviously like not really any need for a manual transmission in an electric vehicle just because of the differences in technology versus internal combustion. So instead of just trying to like rip off a manual transmission or even just like have a manual transmission with an electric drivetrain, I looked at other ways that electric vehicles could be controlled or manipulated differently for like basically for a new opportunity rather than just go off of the old proven of a manual transmission. So what I found out was that torque vectoring is a thing. It's also now becoming a thing in internal combustion engines, but more so it's easier in electric vehicles because single motors can be associated with sides or wheels. So in this case, this cart has 4 motors that are actually inside of the wheels. So it's got it's an all-wheel drive, and it's got separate throttles, and then it's got these visual inputs so you can see what you're doing, as well as programmable speed controllers. So that was kind of the goal. And here you can see it. It's obviously not as beautiful as it should be, but what is here is all the mechanics of what is soon to be in the final revision. So I kind of got a little delayed, obviously, whenever I lost the facilities at school. I planned on doing some CNC stuff and having a welder accessible and whatnot. So things have gone slowed down, but they haven't stopped completely. I have everything on hand to do it. It's just with the situation, I kind of lost the ability to do it in a timely manner. So really, the theory behind all of this is with manual transmissions, there's this idea, well, when you get in and you've never driven a manual transmission, you get in, you look, and you immediately think, why are there 3 pedals? I have 2 feet. This doesn't how is this possible? And then after you finally get it, it starts to become a rewarding experience where you're like, oh yeah, nailed that shift. Awesome. Let me do that again. Or oh, that's not so good. But let me get better at this. And with electric vehicles, because of the technology and because of the trend of trying to make things easier for people, after a certain point, after you find it, after you figure out what to come to expect from them, they're not nearly as impressive from a performance standpoint. They're very impressive from a performance standpoint, but not from like a user experience standpoint after a certain amount of time. So the idea with torque steer was to try and eliminate the learning curve of it, but then also introduce electric technology. So that's where you get the manually controlled torque vectoring, which means that on the left side, you actually control just the left wheels, and on the right side, you control just the right wheels. So you have to be constantly involved with the driving experience rather than just like autonomous vehicle trends that's kind of happening. And so what that does is it makes the driver obviously more involved, but also learn how to manipulate the vehicle in a way to get the desired results. So kind of like, I guess in a cliche way, it's kind of like you give somebody all the tools and then they can figure out how to actually do the thing. Sorry, I'm on my porch because it's nice out, but it's like slightly noisy sometimes. So for the research, this whole project started because when I was leaving co-op, I had an exit interview with my supervisor, and he was like, look, dude, like you're gonna want to do something that you love, because if you start to research something you hate, like you're just gonna really hate it by the end of it. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll take that. Plus, it's easier to sign on to projects whenever you're into them. So I decided to do this as a self-guided research thing and pick something I'm interested in. So I got to go to like Volkswagen of America, drag my wife to like an electric go-kart place, talk to a bunch of nerds in engineering, and then also watch a bunch of YouTube videos, read some books, which I don't normally do. And also I got to build like this electric skateboard and try and learn about electricity, which is terrifying because you can't see it. So like this whole big thing though, like the only real requirement I gave myself when I went into this project was I'm gonna build something. Like I didn't want it to be just like this theory and some renders. Like I wanted it to be at least like a real thing that someone could interact with. Luckily enough, I got that out of my working prototype, but I'm still continuing the build, like I said, and hopefully we'll have a more beautiful final version of it in the coming weeks, hopefully, and not months. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of where my project's at. I'm like working with Drexel right now to maybe get some like intellectual patent stuff done for it, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, so I've been trying to keep it moving. It's like weird with the situation to try and do anything like that, but gotta keep on keeping on, you know.
I think you've done an amazing job at doing your project exactly the way that you wanted to do it, and I think that's really, really commendable. Like seeing all of I haven't spoken to you in like a year because I just like I was supposed to come to the last product design review that got canceled because of COVID. So I wish I'd seen your project at that point so I could have had like a point to compare it. But Tim has been like keeping me updated because he's like very lit about this project.
Yeah, Tim has actually been like super helpful. He's been like my guy, and I'm like, dude, I need a second person. Are you down? So
yeah, he's very lit about your project. But like hearing about how your process and like how you've developed it and like worked with it is really awesome. Like you've done such a good job.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah. I'm like, I kind of like have found it within myself to realize that I'm the type of person where like, if I settle on how I want it to like something to look or something to be, like I'm just gonna work my ass off to try and get it to like be there. Even like goofy stuff like Corinne, we'd mentioned the show and how like that came together. Like there's goofy stuff where I was up to like 3 a.m. trying to figure out code because we had decided that we wanted to look one way instead of the other. So yeah, I think it's part of my personality, but this has definitely been good practice for that.
Yeah, you've done a fantastic job. Like you learned so many more things than I would have bothered to. So
yeah, it's kind of, there's definitely been some stuff. It's like one of those things where you don't know what you know until you find out that you should do it. So there's definitely been way more lessons than anticipated. And also the one big thing I learned is that if you think it's going to take a day, it's probably going to take a week. So that's been like a huge thing.
That's actually how Elon Musk thinks.
Yeah, but he does that, but then like throws money and people at it to get it back to a day.
Yeah, man. Mad respect for all the things that you figured out in like coding the actual setup and putting everything together and actually making it work. That's like, to me, that's like pretty mind-boggling. It definitely shows how many hours that you put in to doing your due diligence and research, watching videos and reading about all that stuff. I'm curious, like, how did you actually learn how to pretty much put everything together and code it up so that it like works?
Yeah, so I like currently have on the page, if you want to check it out, I actually have a link to, I had a electric skateboard forum like build thread. So like obviously like nobody has a plywood go-kart, but there's a certain like world where those merge, and that's kind of like the closest one's electric skateboards. And there's a bunch of nerds and weirdos on that page that like want to try and do weird things. So I found some like positive people within that. So like it's weird to like I've found a weird community to help me with, but also they're hugely based in like this DIY idea, just because like in anything where the purchase point of something is like more than people want to pay for stuff, there's always like a DIY backside of it. So like through that, I've been able to get like some support and some inputs on stuff, and like it even just like little weird stuff like how to solder a certain wire connector, like versus me trying to do it. Like I don't, also though like because this is like because I did build this, like there was plenty of lessons learned the hard way as far as like either burning stuff or like things go pop and then you realize that that wasn't a good thing. So yeah, but like the like huge shout out to what's it, eskateforum.com or whatever. Like those guys are pretty awesome with things. And like I'm hopefully gonna continue this. I mean, not hopefully, I am gonna continue this. But yeah, so hopefully my mother-in-law just got a 50cc scooter. So like I really just want a video of us like drag racing down the street. But until that point, I'm gonna be working on this. So yeah.
Drag racing against your mom-in-law.
Yeah. She thinks it's fast because it's a two-stroke. She doesn't even know what it means. So it should be funny. Just like electric wizard her in the past.
I got kind of like a fundamental question for you.
Yeah.
Do you see the setup and the mechanics of what you've done with the go-kart transcend to perhaps some sort of larger recreational vehicle, maybe like a car or like a dirt buggy or something like that?
Yeah, so definitely. I think, I kind of like mentioned this whenever Jared asked a very similar question on the last presentation, but I think like my goal with this project was really just to like start a conversation on how electric vehicles could like put the driver back as a focus in the vehicle. So like I guess with that, I really just want to like push this project out and like get it maybe some like not notoriety, but like get it out like in the mainstream. But I definitely think that like this could be something. There's so many companies and vehicles that like try and push this idea that torque vectoring is like the wave of the future as far as handling and stability goes. But I think they've missed the opportunity to try and put the driver back in like I have with this project and like allow the driver like driving like things aren't fun unless you can make mistakes on them, at least for some people with like some passions. Like unless you can make mistakes on things, like it's not fun to do it the right way, unless you know what I mean, like unless there's like another alternative that's not as good. So I think with that, I think that's where my project shines as far as giving the ability for someone to make an error. I think that driving enthusiasts would respond positively to that and also like want to strive for the intrinsic reward that this whole like project was kind of based around. With like if you get better at it, you can make it do better things. So I guess yeah, I definitely can see this like put in some sort of vehicle. And there's also been like Jared's second part to that question was how would you integrate it into a vehicle? And it's kind of like any kind of concept vehicle is like so far out there, but at the same time 10 years later you see like little bits and pieces of like this super abstract technology finally showing up as just the new thing. And I think that's kind of part of it is like, this might not be a solution for next year, but hopefully maybe like 10 years down the road, like there's a weird company that wants to try something and people find out it's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, it definitely sounds like niche kind of experience. It almost reminds me of like the art of like drifting and perfecting the drift. And
Yeah.
it sounds like it can open a different kind of style of driving, perhaps.
Yeah, like the opposite of drift. Like instead of controlled, like miscontrol or uncontrolled, it's like just control.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for
If I'm in
presenting
Chicago,
that.
I'll make sure I load it up and allow you guys to take a rip.
Oh, true.
Come on out. It's fun out here, even though we can't do anything. Karim can because he's like a biking wizard, but.
Are the roads like shut down and stuff?
What?
Are the roads like all shut down? Like I'm like not aware of any other cities.
The roads are fine. It's like all the beaches, like those things are still shut down. I'm just not as an avid biker as Karim is, who bikes.
Got
like,
it.
How long did like 14 miles or some crap like that the other day? Like
Last week?
Yeah. How far?
Last week I did 90. Tomorrow I'm going to attempt the Ironman section, which is 112 miles.
Stop.
That's about 111 too many, dude.
Oh man.
I also started like just today. I started to look at electric bikes and was trying to figure out if I wanted to try and build some ridiculous electric bike.
Oh my God, you should make your own electric bike. That would be sick.
Thought about it. Definitely crossed my mind. I don't know if it's on brand, but we'll see. I have plenty of other projects.
All right, man. Great stuff. It's good talking to you. I'm gonna switch over and watch some other projects.
Yeah, dude, go scope out other people's stuff.
All right. Yeah. Nice work.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
See ya.
All right, good job. A+.
Thanks. Raja, you got any questions? Oh, she bounced too. Anybody else? Got 3 minutes. Ovi, you got any questions?
This isn't actually Ovi.
Oh. Your pseudonym.
My pseudonym. How's it going?
It's going all right. You know, I don't know. It was cool. Honestly, I'm really glad that there was like questions and stuff. I quickly adapted after the first one to realize that I needed to present to people because it wasn't apparent that like hadn't looked at my project yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, does anyone have any questions? And like the one guy was like, what am I supposed to ask you?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. Let me go over the webpage. So
nice. Did you show anyone the actual go-kart?
No, it's like I was gonna hotspot and go in the garage to do this whole presentation, but I was worried about connection.
Makes sense.
So whatever. We'll see it whenever it goes big time on the YouTubes and I go viral or something. But anyway, yeah. I think the Olivia in here might just be Olivia Gearhart. Not 100% sure. Yeah, okay. She's beside me. Oh, anyway. This has been interesting.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun. I feel like my last
Honestly,
session was pretty good.
I told Karim, I was like, this has gone much smoother than any of us had actually anticipated.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's been good.
Cool. I'm gonna go pop somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm gonna pop somewhere else too for the 30 minutes because I'm big done now.
Oh shit, you are big done. I have to do one more time at 9:40.
All right, I'll be there. We'll be there. All right, later.